to finish the business of the budget. But as Reverend Rivers just correctly stated, it requires a 2/3 vote in the Senate, and I believe in the House there are a number of House members, Representative Stavronakis and Representative Gilliard are both here. But it requires a 2/3 vote to amend that resolution so that we can take the issue up. It's very, very important that your elected officials, particularly House members and senators, hear from you. If you are in favor of removing the Confederate flag from the State House, in front of the State House, please call your elected officials, because it is the power of the General Assembly, not the governor, but the power of the General Assembly to do so. I would say that to the extent the governor does come out in support of the flag being removed to the State House, we welcome her leadership on this issue. She is a powerful voice, as evidenced by her reelection. But as we move forward tomorrow and the next few weeks under the current sine die resolution, it's the General Assembly, 46 in the House, Senate, and 124 in the House, who has the power to bring this matter forward for official business before those respective bodies. It's time to end division in this state. It's time to move forward into the 21st century. There are many who have cautioned us to wait, but those people are part of the status quo. And what we have to do is galvanize and use this window of opportunity in light of this horrible tragedy and come away with a solution and an agenda to rid this state of hate, division, and racism. And I think that ridding the flag from the front of the State House is a start. But let me underscore this. It will not solve the racial divide in South Carolina. We need a positive discourse on the problems that continue to plague our state, including economic opportunities for all. And that's where a number of our colleagues want to focus after we rid the state of this symbol. I want to applaud the NAACP and Mayor Joe Riley and all others who have been out front on this issue much longer than many of us, including myself, who just got elected to the General Assembly 2 years ago. We are working on behalf of all the citizens in South Carolina. Thank you.
Chairman Sonny.
Thank you. First of all, I think we should really recognize the fact that we have so many different folks from different organizations, whether they be political or community organizations. And as Senator Kempson said, the NAACP, Ms. Scott, Reverend Darby, Mayor Riley, they've been doing this for a long, long time. I think the mayor's march to Columbia was in 2005, I think. Maybe longer than that. It's 2000. It's been a long time. My U.S. history teacher in the 7th grade was a man I served with on county council named Henry Darby. And Henry taught me that in order to know where you're going, you got to understand where you've been. We have a great history in South Carolina and in Charleston. We've got a lot of great things that have happened over the course of our existence, but we've got some not so great things too. And we can't hide from our history. It needs to be told, but it needs to be told appropriately. We have young minds in this state. I've got 2 of my own. They're 5 and 3. And at some point, when they're in the 5th, 6th, 7th grade, they're going to take a field trip to the state capitol. And they're going to tour their home government. And they're going to learn all about how government works. And when they get there, just for those young, impressionable minds to see what has become a symbol of hate to the world, as we saw last Wednesday, can be very damaging. A young and impressionable person who saw things and had this mental state that could be impressioned. And we saw that the Confederate flag, when you go and you read the things that he'd written and understand the things that he was thinking, he had a skewed sense of history, and partially because it sends a message with that flag sitting there that we're okay with what it symbolizes. It should be put in a place of honor somewhere in a museum. Anyone who died in any war or any conflict protecting the state of South Carolina, whether you agreed with the motives that they were protecting them for, they have a place in our history. Most of those folks that died in the Civil War protecting South Carolina were poor folks who were misled in some ways. The time is now. We'd like to have waited till everything had settled down, but to be honest, what better way to honor the 9 folks that died last Wednesday than by making sure that their families know that something extremely positive could come out of their deaths. It's time for South Carolina to move on. It's time for us to put our history behind us. It's time for the world to know that we aren't the stereotypical South Carolinians that people think we are, and that we are here embracing all folks. This entire week since this has happened is a great example of what Charleston and this community means to the world. We know how to communicate. We know how to come together. We don't live in a perfect place, but we want to have that perfect place. We want to strive for it to be that way. And communication is the only key to do that. And by bringing down the flag in front of the state capitol, that's the first step, major step, in making sure that those lines of communication are open between all people. Thank you.
Yeah.
If there is one city in this country that I think is a collage of every aspect of life, it'd be the city of North Charleston. And I'm very proud of the fact, as I called my council members last night and told them they were invited to be here, that 7 of the 10 are here. 1 is out of state or would be here as well. So when we look at the 2/3 majority rule, you've got 2/3 of an entire city that has been elected to represent the community that says the time has come. I think if there was a poll that was taken across this state, 2/3 of the people polled would say the time has come. Put the flag in its place of history where it deserves to be, but do not fly it in the face of people who it has a separate meaning for. You know, I think we have demonstrated in the last several months, as a community, we do come together and we do work together. Do we have a long way to go? Heck yeah. We still have a lot to do to heal relationships within our community. But I think the symbol of taking down the flag would be a great step forward in that communication as we work together to try to make this country that we live in and the state that we live in our individual cities, a better place for all people to live, work, and play together. And because of that, I can tell you that the city of North Charleston encourages the legislators to move forward and move forward now. I think the more we wait, the longer we wait, the idea could get cold. We don't need for it to be cold. As I sat yesterday and watched the people go up and down the Cooper River Bridge, I saw such a collage of individuals, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, all meeting together, hugging, grasping each other, looking for a way to feel comfort in their lives. And I can tell you, I was moved, I was touched, because we have an opportunity to start a dialogue that will bring all of us into a better life. The two little boys he talked about earlier, and my daughter's two kids, all 6 and under. What are we going to do to make sure that they don't see color? They don't see what ethnic background you're from. You look at each other as human beings. There's not one person in here that if you had a lung transplant that you needed and they brought the lung in, you wouldn't ask who it came out of. You would take that lung. We have a lot in common. And we need to remember that I don't understand why God made us different. I don't really care. Inside, he made us all alike. And in relationships, we're all alike. And we need to move forward. I was told, my God, you've got an election in November. Why are you stepping up and doing something? You're going to make a lot of people mad. I don't think so. And if I do, what the heck? The bottom line is, as leaders of a community, we should step up to the plate to do that which is right and that which is just. And our goal should be to leave this world better than we found it, and I think this is a step in that direction.
Thank you. Reverend.
I will speak first. I'm going to speak very briefly and for two reasons. First, to represent all the women, and also to take this opportunity to personally introduce Reverend Joseph Darby, who will speak on behalf of the NAACP. The fight for the removal of the Confederate flag started prior to my 14-year of tenure as the NAACP president of Charleston branch. But since that time, and with working with Reverend Darby, the message has been clear, it's been consistent, and it has been eloquent in what he has been putting out there as to what the NAACP stand has been. And at this time, I'll let Reverend Darby speak. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam President. Let me simply join in what my president said and thank all of those persons who are coming on board with something that began 16 years ago when the NAACP South Carolina Conference first petitioned the National, and the National agreed to impose economic sanctions on the state of South Carolina. We managed at that time to get the flag halfway down, but it's still in the wrong place, not only because it's an insult, but because the top or the front of a public building should be reserved for the flags of existing sovereign governments. There is no sovereign Confederate States of America, so that flag should not be there. It is sad that it took a tragedy, the loss of 9 lives, to bring this to the light again. But maybe that's the ray of sunshine in their loss. Maybe this is the time that something substantive will happen. NAACP is committed to make that happen. We also believe that this should be the beginning of a dialogue, not only in our city, but in our state and our nation about issues of race, because there is still deep-seated chronic division that goes under the radar in America, in South Carolina, in North Charleston, and in Charleston. What better way to say we're going to deal with that than take down a flag that was flown at a time when the civil rights movement was coming into power? When you take that flag down, you create a discussion point. When you take that flag down, you say that people of goodwill are willing to move forward together. When you take that flag down, you make a positive statement, not as black folk, not as white folk, but as Americans. And we need to make that statement as citizens. We are thankful that there are others who are now ready to make that statement as well. I respect the right of those who cherish their history to cherish their history, as we all do. I would encourage them to think about how wonderful it will be to have that history in a historic context. I encourage them to continue the private displays as well in their homes, on their vehicles. I would encourage their display in their places of business as well, so that they can celebrate their heritage in a proper way. But this is a good day because the Civil War began in Charleston, South Carolina. We want the Civil War to end starting in Charleston, South Carolina.
Let me
1, 2, 3, test. One, two, three, test. 1, 2, 3. One, two, three, four, five, test.
Yeah, look at it straight out there.
Yeah.
I could never do this. It'd be so stressed out. Don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I'm gonna ask somebody.
I'll go. I have no idea.
It's right there.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I need everyone to check again. We just bumped the levels down a bit. Some people were saying it was a bit overdriven, so everyone, I'm gonna go down the line starting with Jack. Give me a thumbs up when you're good. All right, Jack, give me a thumbs up when you're sounding good. If you need higher levels, lower levels, let me know. I got you, WLTX, we're sounding good there. Jack, how we doing? All right, here, how you doing? Good? Get on these cameras. Y'all good over here? NBC, Rich, you good? In the back there, how we looking? Good levels over here. Y'all good? WIS. Guys over here, sounding good, this new level. Is that better for everyone? Not too overdriven, all that? All right, good stuff. Print guys.
right, so normally I try and get y'all ready, and I'm just not going to try and do that with my thumbs up today. So hopefully y'all are ready to go. This has been a very difficult time for our state. We have stared evil in the eye and watched good, prayerful people killed in one of the most sacred of places. We were hurt and broken, and we needed to heal. We were able to start that process, not by talking about issues that divide us, but by holding vigils, by hugging our neighbors, by honoring those we lost, and by falling to our knees in prayer. Our state is grieving, but we are also coming together. The outpouring of love and support from all corners of people across this state and country has been amazing. The families who lost loved ones have been unbelievable pillars of strength and grace. Their expression of faith and forgiveness took our breath away. They truly have shown the world what South Carolina looks like at our best. And the Mother Emanuel Church reopened its doors yesterday. Michael and I were there. We took our two little ones, Rena and Nayland. My children saw what true faith looks like. My children saw that true hate can never triumph over true love. My children saw the heart and soul of South Carolina starting to mend. I want to talk a little bit about the heart of our state. I want to talk about the people of South Carolina I'm so proud to serve. The country and the world have watched our strength and resilience over the last few days. We are strong people who love God, our families, and have a deep faith. We believe in neighbors helping neighbors. We are a state that has held tight to our traditions and continue to grow and change in ways that move us forward. We were recently named the friendliest state in the country, and the most patriotic, too. American flags fly proudly from home to home in South Carolina. In just the last few months, the nation watched our state go through another time of crisis, when we dealt with the betrayal of one of our own in the tragic shooting of Walter Scott. South Carolina did not respond with rioting and violence like other places have. We responded by talking to each other, by putting ourselves in other people's shoes, and by finding common ground in the name of moving our state forward. The result? Both Republicans and Democrats, black and white, came together and passed the first body camera bill in the country. And I stand in front of you, a minority female governor, twice elected by the people of South Carolina. Behind me stands my friend, Senator Tim Scott, elected by those same people as one of just 2 African American members of the United States Senate. 5 years ago, it was said in the last 50 years, South Carolina is the state that has changed the most for the better. That was true when I quoted it at my first inauguration in 2011. It's even more true today. We have changed through the times, and will continue to do so. But that does not mean we forget our history. History is often filled with emotion, and that's more true in South Carolina than a lot of other places. On matters of race, South Carolina has a tough history. We all know that. Many of us have seen it in our own lives, in the lives of our parents and our grandparents. We don't need reminders. In spite of last week's tragedy, we have come a long way since those days and have much to be proud of. But there's more we can do. That brings me to the subject of the Confederate flag that flies on the State House grounds. For many people in our state, the flag stands for traditions that are noble. Traditions of history, of heritage, and of ancestry. The hate-filled murderer who massacred our brothers and sisters in Charleston has a sick and twisted view of the flag. In no way does he reflect the people in our state who respect and in many ways revere it. Those South Carolinians view the flag as a symbol of respect, integrity, and duty. They also see it as a memorial, a way to honor ancestors who came to the service of their state during time of conflict. That is not hate, nor is it racism. At the same time, for many others in South Carolina, the flag is a deeply offensive symbol of a brutally oppressive past. As a state, we can survive, and indeed we can thrive, as we have done, while still being home to both of those viewpoints. We do not need to declare a winner and a loser here. We respect freedom of expression, and that for those who wish to show their respect for the flag on their private property, no one will stand in your way. But the State House is different, and the events of this past week call upon us to look at this in a different way. 15 years ago, after much contentious debate, South Carolina came together in a bipartisan way to move the flag from atop the Capitol dome. Today, we are here in a moment of unity in our state, without ill will, to say it's time to move the flag from the Capitol grounds. 150 years after the end of the Civil War, the time has come. There will be some in our state who see this as a sad moment. I respect that. But know this, for good and for bad, whether it is on the State House grounds or in a museum, the flag will always be a part of the soil of South Carolina. But this is a moment in which we can say that that flag, while an integral part of our past, does not represent the future of our great state. The murderer, now locked up in Charleston, said he hoped his actions would start a race war. We have an opportunity to show that not only was he wrong, but that just the opposite is happening. My hope is that by removing a symbol that divides us, we can move forward as a state in harmony, and we can honor the 9 blessed souls who are now in heaven. The General Assembly wraps up their year this week, and as governor, I have the authority to call them back into session under extraordinary circumstances. I have indicated to the House and the Senate that if they do not take measures to ensure this debate takes place this summer, I will use that authority for the purpose of the legislature removing the flag from the State House grounds. That will take place in the coming weeks after the regular session and the veto session have been completed. There will be a time for discussion and debate, but the time for action is coming soon. I want to make 2 things very clear. First, this is South Carolina's State House. It is South Carolina's historic moment, and this will be South Carolina's decision. To those outside of our state, the flag may be nothing more than a symbol of the worst of America's past. That is not what it is to many South Carolinians. The State House belongs to all of us. Their voices will be heard, and their role in this debate will be respected. We have made incredible progress in South Carolina on racial issues, yes, but on so many others. The 21st century belongs to us because we have chosen to seize what is in front of us, to do what is right, and do it together. I have every faith that this will be no different. It is what we do in South Carolina. It is who we are. Second, I understand that what I have said here today will generate a lot of interest. What I ask is that the focus still remain on the 9 victims of this horrible tragedy. Their families, the Mother Emanuel family, the AME Church family, the South Carolina family. We all deserve time to grieve and to remember and to heal. We will take it, and I ask that you respect that. We know that bringing down the Confederate flag will not bring back the 9 kind souls that were taken from us, nor rid us of the hate and bigotry that drove a monster through the doors of Mother Emanuel that night. Some divisions are bigger than a flag. The evil we saw last Wednesday comes from a place much deeper, much darker. But we are not going to allow this symbol to divide us any longer. The fact that people are choosing to use it as a sign of hate is something that we cannot stand. The fact that it causes pain to so many is enough to move it from the Capitol grounds. It is, after all, a Capitol that belongs to all of us. July 4th is just around the corner. Soon we will once again celebrate the birth of our nation and of our freedoms. It will be fitting that our state capitol will soon fly the flags of our country and of our state, and no others. God bless the people of the great state of South Carolina. Thank you.